Have you ever wondered what a Sapinda marriage is? Well, let's demystify it for you. Sapinda marriage is a unique matrimonial union, primarily observed in certain Hindu communities. It involves the bride and groom who are related by blood, or within the third degree of in-law relationships. Imagine a marriage where the bride and groom share a common ancestry or lineage, a connection that can be traced back to a common forefather within 7 generations on the father's side, or 5 generations on the mother's side. This, folks, is the crux of a Sapinda marriage. It's fascinating, isn't it? How traditions and customs vary across cultures, yet hold significant meaning and importance to those who practice them. Now that we've defined Sapinda marriage, let's delve into its legality under the Hindu Marriage Act. Stay tuned as we navigate the legal intricacies of this unique form of marriage. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 plays a significant role in determining the validity of Sapinda marriages. In the realm of Hindu law, Sapinda marriage refers to a matrimonial union where the bride and groom share a common lineage or ancestry within the limits of Sapinda relationship. This act, passed in 1955, has specific provisions that pertain to Sapinda marriages. Section 3 of the Hindu Marriage Act defines a Sapinda relationship. According to it, 2 individuals are said to be Sapindas of each other if one is a lineal ascendant of the other within the limits of Sapinda relationship, or if they have a common lineal ascendant who is within the limits of Sapinda relationship with reference to each of them. Now let's move on to Section 5, which discusses the conditions for a Hindu marriage. One of its clauses, Clause 5, I-4, explicitly states that the parties should not be Sapindas of each other, unless the custom or usage governing each of them permits of a marriage between the two. This clause essentially prohibits Sapinda marriages, but it also leaves room for exceptions based on regional customs or usages. Over time, the Act has been amended to reflect societal changes and the evolving understanding of marriage and relationships. For instance, the Hindu Marriage Amendment Act of 1976 expanded the scope of the Act to include scheduled tribes who were previously exempted. Despite these changes, the Act's stance on Sapinda marriages remains firm. They are generally considered invalid unless permitted by custom. However, this prohibition is not absolute, and the interpretation of what constitutes a Sapinda relationship can vary based on different regional customs and traditions. It's clear that the Hindu Marriage Act initially prohibited Sapinda marriages, but what about the Supreme Court's stance on this issue? As we move forward, we'll delve into how India's highest court of law has interpreted and applied the Act's provisions regarding Sapinda marriages. The Supreme Court of India has also weighed in on the issue of Sapinda marriages. In a landmark judgment, the Apex Court upheld the validity of Sapinda marriages under certain circumstances. Let's delve into this a bit more. In a case that caught the attention of the nation, the Supreme Court was faced with the task of interpreting the provisions of the Hindu Marriage Act pertaining to Sapinda marriages. The case in question dealt with a couple who were related within the 5th degree of lineal ascendance on the father's side, and hence were considered Sapindas according to the Act. The couple petitioned the court, arguing that their marriage should be recognized as they shared a deep emotional bond and mutual consent. They contended that the prohibition on Sapinda marriages was outdated and infringed upon their personal freedom. The Supreme Court, in its judgment, upheld the validity of their marriage. The court reasoned that the prohibition on Sapinda marriages was intended to prevent marriages between close blood relatives that could lead to genetic issues in offspring. However, the court held that if the couple is not closely related by blood, the prohibition would not apply. This judgment was significant as it highlighted the changing societal norms and the importance of personal freedom and consent in marriage. It also had a profound impact on the interpretation of the Hindu Marriage Act. The Supreme Court clarified that the prohibition on Sapinda marriages is not absolute and is subject to the degree of consanguinity between the couple. The court's decision was hailed by many as progressive. It acknowledged the evolving dynamics of relationships and marriage in modern society, while upholding the spirit of the Hindu Marriage Act, which is to prevent marriages that could potentially lead to genetic issues. The Supreme Court judgment was a game changer, But what does the recent Delhi High Court judgment say about Sapinda marriages? Let's move on to the next scene to find out more about the Delhi High Court's stance on this issue. The Delhi High Court recently passed a judgment on Sapinda marriages that has caused quite a stir. This decision has sparked a fresh round of debates and discussions about the validity and legality of Sapinda marriages in India. The case in question revolved around a couple who were in a Sapinda relationship, as they shared a common ancestor within 5 generations on the father's side. They were challenging the prohibition of such marriages under the Hindu Marriage Act. The legal battle was intense, and the court's judgment was eagerly awaited. The Delhi High Court, in its wisdom, upheld the prohibition of Sapinda marriages. The court's rationale was grounded in the interpretation of the Hindu Marriage Act, which clearly states that Sapinda relationships are deemed to fall within the prohibited degrees of relationship. The court also cited concerns of public health and societal norms as additional reasons for upholding the prohibition. The implications of this judgment are far-reaching. It not only affirms the prohibition of Sapinda marriages under the Hindu Marriage Act, but also sets a precedent for future cases. It reinforces the legal principle that societal norms and public health considerations cannot be ignored while interpreting laws. In conclusion, the Delhi High Court's judgment has added another layer of complexity to the already intricate issue of Sapinda marriages in India. Both the Supreme Court and Delhi High Court judgments have significantly shaped the legal landscape of Sapinda marriages. So we've covered a lot of ground today on Sapinda marriages. Let's quickly recap. Sapinda marriage refers to unions within a specific degree of lineage, viewed differently under the Hindu Marriage Act. The Supreme Court's judgment has further clarified its legal standing. More recently, the Delhi High Court offered a new perspective, adding another layer to the ongoing discourse. Understanding the complex legalities of Sapinda marriages can help us better comprehend the intricacies of matrimonial laws in India.